Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from Kid Endmore, who says, new neighbor didn't like my old fence, so I took it down. About 5 or 6 years ago, I built a fence in my backyard. I talked to my neighbors and we decided on a good place to build the fence. We knew an approximate property line based on some survey pins, but we're both too cheap to pay for a surveyor. We shook hands and I built the fence. It was a great deal for my neighbors. I paid for everything, built the fence, and all they had to do was give me a thumbs up when it was done. Then, a year later, they sold their house. That meant I got a new neighbor. More specifically, I got Anne. Anne was from the big city. Anne was a realtor and had flipped 8 houses in 12 years. Anne loved this new house and planned on staying for a long time. And Anne had a dog. Razzie was a German Shepherd mix that spent most of the day outside while Anne went to work. Razzie was aggressive towards children, animals, insects, and any plants that waved in the breeze. Razzie also, as Anne once told me, loved to chew on furniture. That's why Razzie stayed outside so much. About 6 months after Anne moved in, I saw a surveyor walking around in my neighborhood, and he was paying special attention to my backyard. The next day, Anne showed up at my front door with a stack of papers and asked me if I was going to pay her for the 9 inches that my fence was encroaching onto her property. I explained the handshake deal with the last neighbors, but she was having no part of it. She wanted the fence moved or she wanted money. No discussions. She had spoken to a lawyer friend and was perfectly happy to take me to court over the fence. She told me, I don't know how you guys do it out here in the sticks, but where I come from, we follow the rules. So I got rid of the fence. The next day, I unscrewed the horizontal rails from the brackets, stacked the fence panels up against my garage, and pulled up the fence post with my work van. About a week later, Anne shows up at my front door again. She wants to know when I'm going to be building a new fence. Turns out, without my portion of the fence, she has not been able to let Razzie out unattended for fear that he will run away, attack something, or get hit by a car. She also told me she can't keep him in the house all day while she's at work anymore. Her furniture and carpet are all but ruined. I told her, well, Anne, I'm not going to be rebuilding the fence. I don't want any legal trouble, and the best way to stay out of trouble is to not build near your property. The look on her face was priceless. I thought she was going to cry. She probably did when she got back home. She tried to protest, saying that she really needed the fence back and she would even help pay for the new one. She told me how much she loved the style and aesthetic of the old one. It was just the location that she had a problem with. I stood firm. There would be no new fence. She never got a fence. She made half-hearted attempts to put up some bamboo fencing, but Razzie tore through that stuff like wet newspaper. Eventually, I sold my place and moved away. I took the old fence panels with me, and I still look at them every day when I let my dog out in the morning. Now, when we used to cover like entitled people and neighbor stuff quite frequently, I never get the logic of approaching a neighbor straight away with some sort of legal action or demand like they do, rather than just going up to your neighbor and saying, oh, is there something we can do about that? You know, OP comes across as a good person, so to approach them straight away with a demand, a legal demand, is just insane. And of course, it ended up biting her in the ass in this one. But I honestly would have loved it to see her face when she realized that fence was coming down. I bet that was just an absolute picture. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Ain't None Your Business from the Malicious Compliance subreddit and says, check the property line before I build. Okie dokie. Number 1, first time posting, so please feel free to roast if it sucks or if it's in the wrong subreddit. It's kind of new. I'm fluent in English, but my laziness outweighs everything in life. So if I make mistakes, meh. 3, the story isn't mine, it's my uncle's, and it happened a few years ago, so it's just the story, not accurate dialogue. The cast, you, my uncle, NC, neighbor's children. So A few years ago, my uncle wanted to add an extension to the side of his house where his yard went round the side a bit. He asked the neighbor, who was actually a really lovely older man, who said sure, feel free, and my uncle started to work. Unfortunately, the neighbor got ill, and his demon seed, the neighbor's children, started coming over, and when they saw that my uncle was building close to the neighbor's side yard, they were furious. They immediately asked him to stop, which my uncle did, and the neighbor's children insisted he was building on the neighbor's property. Now, my uncle is a really nice guy, so to avoid any issues, he offered to buy part of the yard he was going to extend to and offered a reasonable $5,000 for it. It wasn't that big of a patch. The demon NC got greedy and refused, so my uncle, being a gentleman, doubled it and offered $10,000, as he thought it was easier than going through the hassle of lawyers and property lines, etc. But the NC still refused. They said, "You're crossing my dad's property line and you can't build on it. Either give us more money or stop building. We want to sell this house when he's gone." Yep, they were waiting for the sweet neighbor to die so they can sell his house. Uncle said, "I think $10,000 is fair enough. I'm not using up that much and it's still close to my part of the property." They said, "Nope, it's not. Check the property lines. You are way past our property line. Offer us more money or stop building." Uncle replied saying, "Are you sure you don't want to take the money?" They scoffed, saying, "Not what you're offering. Check the property lines, love." "Yep, we're British. Sorry." So my uncle complied with their wishes, stopped all building work. It was on their property after all. Or was it? This is where the malicious compliance comes in. He did exactly what the NC asked and got the original plans for both properties. Still have no idea how, and checked the property lines to see how it was divided. Wouldn't you know it? He wasn't on their property line. They were on his. With a massive smile, my uncle went to the neighbors the next time the NC were around and kindly showed them the plans of the properties, clearly showing where the properties were divided. Their faces when they realized they had not only missed out on an easy $10,000, they had in fact lost their dad. About a quarter of this yard was priceless. He had to move the fence and my uncle got to build his extension stress-free. Sorry, no angry outburst or anything like that. Moral of the story: if you want to build and the neighbor's kids insist you should check the property lines, do it. You might just save some money and gain some land. For your information, I work in the NHS for a while and I am petty, so I have a lot of other stories if anyone is interested. But what do you guys make of this situation? There was a lot of talk below this one about the legalities of, just getting land like that, offering $5,000, etc. But I couldn't help but feel for the old neighbor in this situation. What's your thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments below. And let's move to another story. Now, our next story is from Story Skeller, who says, "You want me to clear the dead grass or I'll be fined? I will clean exactly my property." Disclaimers: on mobile, non-English speaker, not in the US. This story started in 2017, was repeated every year until this year, and I have promised my father-in-law to repeat the compliance if it happens again. My in-laws used to live just outside of town. They moved this past fall to my mother-in-law's home island, and we moved in their place. And when I say just outside, I mean about 2 meters outside of the city plan. To be exact and important for later, the city plan reached up to the middle of the dirt road that separated their property with the neighboring one. So back in spring of 2017, my in-laws received a letter from the city council about cleaning their property from dead grass in preparation for summer due to fire hazards, or they would be fined. The letter and the deadline, end of May, were normal. What wasn't normal was the area named. It was their property, the property next to them, inside city limits, and the road in between. My father-in-law took the letter to the council and explained that the property next to him didn't belong to him and couldn't clean it. They appeared to accept it, but something was nagging him. Now, my father-in-law had worked in exactly 2 companies in his life, both of them handling big government contracts, and his main job was to take care of the red tape and government bureaucracy. So he found the exact law that said that the owner was responsible for their property, and the city was responsible for any roads and properties inside city limits that the owner couldn't be found. He had also found, through his connections, that the local council was under investigation for a misappropriation of funds, including the funds for cleaning lots that were considered fire hazards. The tactic they used was to include lots that fell under their responsibility to nearby owners and either intimates, with the fear of a fine, to clean them or fine them and pocket the money. My father-in-law decided to become creative. First, he gathered all the plans related to his property and the one next to him. Next, he cleared his property. He was planning to do that anyway. Only that, he cleared the part of the road that fell outside city limits. And then he waited. The deadline passed, and about 10 days later, a hefty fine arrived. My father-in-law challenged officially. The council tried to enforce the fine. My father-in-law challenged it again, presenting his evidence at an open forum of the council. The council insisted that they were on the right, and if my father-in-law didn't pay, they would take legal action. My father-in-law agreed happily to the legal action. This led to the court appointing an outside inspector to check the property, the city plans, and the work my father-in-law had done. The council not only lost the case and had to pay legal fees, but were forced to an outside audit that led to a couple of councilmen facing criminal charges. Every year since then, my father-in-law used to clean his property and exactly up to the middle of the road next to him. That duty has been passed down to me now, which I fulfilled this year. There was a lot of comments below this one saying that some city councils, and I'm saying some, are as bad as some HOAs. I always feel like I have to add the some these days because I always get comments like, no, my one's perfect. I know there's good ones and bad ones out there, of course, but what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's have another one. Now, our next story is coming from the wedding shaming subreddit, and it's got a tag on it of rude guests. It's from Tenborough Sunshine and says, all the wedding drama my bridesmaids and maid of honor shielded me from on my wedding day. I originally posted this as a comment on another post, but decided to post this as its own. For my wedding, I'd asked my bridesmaid and maid of honor to basically shield me from any drama. I even gave my phone to my maid of honor to deal with any phone calls or texts. I had 5 girls total. All of them are very no-nonsense. And they did such an amazing job in shielding me. I had no idea anything crazy had happened at all until months later. So I had my sister-in-law, brother's wife, active duty Marine, and my family friend, kindergarten teacher, to act as my bouncerettes. They were my first line of defense, and if they needed extra help, my girls were on standby. A co-worker of mine brought a 2-month-old baby and a 4-year-old, which was totally fine. We were having a child-friendly wedding. Her original plan was to leave the 4-year-old with her husband, but his NFL team had made the playoffs that year and didn't want to be bothered by the kid. He just wanted to hang out with his buddies and watch his game. Co-worker needed to breastfeed her baby, but couldn't because 4-year-old is borderline feral, and she wanted to leave her child in the bridal suite while she did. Sister-in-law said there is no way in hell the child was coming. Baby was getting fussy, 4-year-old was going nuts, co-worker was complaining about her boobs hurting and leaking. Family friend, bouncerette, kindergarten teacher offered to watch her while she was breastfeeding. Originally, co-worker didn't want to leave her child with a complete stranger, but sister-in-law said her options were to let family friend watch the kid or she'd take the kid herself. Co-worker relented and let them go off for a bit. With family friend gone, sister-in-law didn't want to be alone, so she called one of my girls to hang out with her. My maid of honor went out because she was done getting ready and the others weren't. Next came step-sister-in-law. Her and I never really got along and my girls knew this. Step-sister-in-law said she wanted to come hang out with me, but she was told no. She kept begging to be let in, but they were adamant that she was not. Then a groomsman came by and said they discovered Step was posting wedding photos of the church, the guests, and even photos of the groomsmen on Instagram. My maid of honor was pissed. She told Step to delete the photos. Step said no. So maid of honor snatched her phone and stuffed it down her bra and told her she can have her phone back after the reception. She melted down and begged for her phone back. Maid of honor told her that the only way she gets her phone back is if she told him the phone code so she could go on her Instagram and delete them. Step relented, and maid of honor deleted the photos herself. Maid of honor then told her that if she finds out she'd been posting photos prematurely again, she would lose the phone until the following morning. I guess sister-in-law and maid of honor scared her so bad, she didn't post a thing until the next day. Future sister-in-law, husband's sister, is an alcoholic. Our wedding was a cash wine and beer bar, which was our attempt to limit his sister, since we knew she didn't have a lot of money. What we didn't anticipate was 1. Her to begin drinking before the ceremony even started. 2. To sneak alcohol into our church. She tried to get into the bridal suite to give me a good luck kiss, but my girls told her she wasn't allowed in. She started to get loud and belligerent, but my girls had turned music on earlier, so I didn't hear anything going on in the hallway. Maid of honor had one of my other bridesmaids go track down her dad to take care of her. He basically went and put her in the car. It was a January wedding in Houston, Texas, so leaving her in a turned-off car wasn't a death sentence. She ended up falling asleep in the car, and in between the ceremony and reception, they drove her home. One of the ring bearers, 3 years old, managed to sneak away, and his dad could not find him anywhere. His mum was one of my bridesmaids. She snuck out to organize search with 2 other bridesmaids. They eventually found him asleep on the floor under the prep table in the kitchen. Somehow, my ex found out I was getting married. He started blowing up my phone, telling me I was making a huge mistake, that him and I were meant to be. Blah blah blah. At first, my maid of honor, who had given my phone to, ignored him. Then she texted back for him to go away. Then he tried to call. She ripped into him about how he had his chance and he blew it. Maid of honor knew my whole history with him and how mentally and emotionally abusive and manipulative he was. She really let him have it before she hung up on him, blocked his number, and deleted his texts. During the reception, step-sister-in-law, same one that was posting to Instagram before the ceremony, was stalking the photographer. For whatever reason, she felt she needed to be in every photo. Throughout the reception, there were times when my girls had to either rescue the photographer or tell Step to leave them alone. When my photographer gave us the photos, she apologized that there weren't as many photos as she had liked because Step was in so many photos where she simply couldn't be edited out. We still had tons of photos, so I was still happy. I found out about all this on accident. I don't think anyone had any intentions of telling me anything. Looking at the photos, I asked my husband how come his sister wasn't in a single photo. He casually mentioned that his dad took her home because she was making a drunken scene in the bridal suite. I was like, wait, what? This was news to me. That was all he knew. So I called my maid of honor to find out what happened with sister-in-law, and she told me all of the above. I definitely chose well with my wedding party. Holy moly, now that is a group of friends that you need in your corner that you didn't realize all this shit was going on your wedding day. It's absolutely amazing. I've just got this wild picture in my head of Opie, in her bridal suite, having her makeup and her hair done, and just like all the way outside, like outside the window, outside the front door, there's just chaos going on. However, I'm glad your wedding went as smoothly as it did because you clearly didn't know anything about anything, which is a great thing. And just well done to your mates at the same time. They sound absolutely amazing. But what do you guys make of this situation? Have you ever been in any of your own wedding drama or seen any? And let's have another story. Now, come with me. We're going to have a stroll over to the r/I don't work here ladies subreddit from Warden of Monsters, who says, how do I respect my elders? Like a professional smartass. Done on mobile. Apologies in advance. All names are fictional. So, a bit of background to this utter fluke of circumstances. About a year ago, I moved back into my childhood home with my papa, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, in the volunteer state. He's a really chill guy that is just lonely because all his kids are 40 plus years old, and the only people that he talked to regularly before I came back were in the same boat. My return was only shortly before the pandemic started, so he's been cool with me staying rent-free until I find a full-time job. So we've largely been living off food stamps to get by. That being said, we make a serious grocery run about once a month. The same night I try to make a monthly steak night, so we can feel like we live off more than rice, canned soup and coupons. I spent roughly 12 years living in a household of folks practically obsessed with cooking, so I'm fairly good at it. But it's not a one-stop shop, so we do end up taking a whole day to get everything. And we always end up stopping by Wally World for the blue cheese crumbles I adore on my steak. Melt in a saucepan with sauteed mushrooms and caramelized onions with half a cup and half milk. Wonderful topping sauce, so Just go easy on the salty seasonings. A light sprinkling of garlic powder at most, and only sear steak in cast iron pan before baking with toppings in oven for 475 for 2 to 5 minutes, depending on how rare you like it. I love cooking tips in the middle of a story. On this particular day though, I just had come back from our local Amazon location trying to get a job, so I was dressed in nice shoes, my best blue jeans, and a blue polo shirt. If you cannot guess where this is going by now, then you haven't read enough of these stories. Though to the credit of the managers at this location, at least the fine, brave people working there now wear uniform vests with a company logo on the back, most likely to avoid situations like this. I meet Papa there, and we start shopping. As we stock up on instant ramen and yakisoba, he and I aren't talking much, shopping like a well-oiled machine. We both know what the house needs and our budget. After a while, I hear footsteps approaching from behind, and so I step a bit further from the center of the aisle so whoever it is can pass. When they get close, I stop in front of Paul's buggy to let whoever it is pass. Then I feel like it is something out of a horror movie. 4 or 5 hard edges moving against the back of my neck without warning. So like most sane people, I assume something is trying to sting or bite me, and I slap the back of my neck as hard and as fast as my reflexes allow. Feeling my hand connect with something large, my reaction is to grab it and throw it, twisting my head around to try and see what was on me. What I see is this frail-looking woman in her 80s looking at me in shock, the fingers of her right and caught in my grip. I instantly let her fingers go and turn to face her, trying to lighten the mood with a wisecrack of, "Not your best idea ever, huh?" She narrows her eyes at me, and with her cheeks and lips sagging like an English bulldog, she grumps at me. "Excuse me?" I said, "You're excused," I reply out of habit, gesturing she is free to get by us. And no, I wasn't oblivious to her temper. I was just ignoring it so we could all move on with our day. Apparently she doesn't appreciate my efforts and smacks me on the arm. Not like it hurt or anything. I'm 27 as of last month, 6 foot high and the better part of 300 pounds. She looked like a strong breeze would snap her in half, so it had about as much effect as she'd swung a loaf of bread at me. Off to my right I can hear my papa go, "Hey now." He goes ignored as the old lady says, "Is that any way to treat a lady, young man?" "I dunno," I reply as I rub the scratch marks on my neck. "If I see one, I'll be sure to ask." Ooh. Her jaw falls open at that, and she actually kicks me just below the knee. That one I actually felt, and I scowl at her. "Geez lady, save it for the ring, okay Mrs. Tyson?" The first boxer that came to mind at the time. "You're very rude. Where is your manager?" And I blink a few times and I actually smile as it clicks what's happening. I watch a lot of channels on YouTube to read out stories like these while I'm busy with other stuff, so in my mind what started as a scare just turned into chance for some fun. "Tahiti maybe? He has a timeshare there," I reply as I smirk. She huffs and rolls her eyes, still massaging her fingers. "Oh whatever, just give me your name and number to report you." My papa tries to cut in and says "Mom," but she all but hollers "Name and number." Dramatically I put my hand on my chest. "Oh but Mom, that is so improper. I'll have you know my wife looks very poorly on me just giving out my number to other women. I'm single, but just want to watch her mentally trip over herself." She does an impression of a fish with her mouth before something catches her eye down the aisle. "You, come here." I look and I see an actual employee heading our way. I smirk and then blatantly stage whisper to him as loud as I can. "Run away, run away." If looks could kill, that lady would have turned me into fine red mist. The employee enjoyed a few minutes of her chastising me to him, while I looked as bored as I can be. He looks at me and tells her, "He doesn't work here." Spotted a chance, I loudly and sarcastically say over the lady's retort. "Oh come on Jimmy." His name tag said his name was Max. "Don't tell me you forgot me. It's me, Ben Tykett. Middle name Doverand." My papa bursts out in the wheezing coughs that passes for his laughter. He's the one that taught me that joke, so I ask Max, "You know where I can get my papa some tea?" The old lady seems to be catching on by this point, so I pointedly ignored while she focuses on Max. As papa and I quietly make our escape, he looks at me and says, "Kid, you're fucking weird." I glance back at the lady down the aisle and reply to him, "Better than crazy." He just shrugs with a nod and we carry on with our shopping. I'm embarrassed and ashamed to say I didn't get the joke at first and I had to Google it. I do apologize. Minty Fresh said on the back of this one, this reads like a story where you put in all your retorts after thinking about it in the shower afterwards. If not, bravo, that is some quick fucking wit, lol. Opie says, I learned self-esteem from professional arseholes. You'll be surprised how easy it is to cross quips with folks when you choose just to not get angry. The levels of zen you can reach from the sheer I don't give a fuck is astounding. Whenever we talk about I don't work here ladies stories, they always remind me of when I did that market research job and had to go to lots of supermarkets. Majorities of sometimes of my day was spent going round random supermarkets, looking at products, dates, batch codes, all this kind of stuff. And pretty damn quick, your I don't give a fuck shield builds up because you're buying bulk products. Like I've told you, I've had to buy like 400 tubs of jelly, butter, had to buy 400 different shampoos and conditioners from various stores, and you just fill in trolleys up. So of course people are always curious and they come up to you and ask you what you're doing. I've had people trying to nick stuff from my trolleys before as I've walked outside in the car park because I've bought it in bulk. They think it's, you know, free fucking real estate. Occasionally you have people moaning at you because you're buying too much of a certain type product, you know. And generally in those kind of situations I always talk to the manager first, saying, is it okay if I take X amount of this? Generally, I got an okay with that. But in general, you just got a lot of interaction with people because of it. So, you know, the whole butter slide conversation, it just comes pretty quickly. But anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me, so thank you so much for being involved. Truly, it's absolutely amazing, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, and much love.